She gave her heart to a man who promised her the world.
He was very nice, very charming.
He made her feel special.
She's having all these butterflies. Everything's amazing.
But their fairy tale romance will be cut short.
She was shot in the head.
They found blood all over inside the car.
Was it a robbery gone wrong?
Her cell phone and her purse were missing.
This was looking more and more like a random crime.
Or was it personal?
She had met a woman that she was in love with.
She was starting to explore her sexuality.
The investigation will turn up a number of suspects.
It was an overwhelming case.
Things really started to go downhill.
And before the dust settles, another life may be lost.
We don't want to believe that the depravity that happened in this case was possible.
That Jekyll and Hyde type of personality.
It was love that killed her, in a way.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
January 22nd, 2017. It's a peaceful Sunday in Yonkers, New York, a suburban gateway between New York City and the Hudson Valley.
Yonkers is a city of about 200,000 people, just north of New York City.
We're sometimes affectionately known as the sixth borough.
Yonkers area can be a little more urban. It's a melting pot, but it is genuinely a really nice place to live.
However, this morning, Yonkers resident Leonida Perez Casado is up nervously pacing her apartment.
She had woke up around 7 and noticed her daughter was at home.
Hey, you reached Diana. Leave a message.
Diana, it's your mother. Where are you?
Mom's calling Diana, not getting her on the phone.
Diana was 27. She was an adult, but this type of behavior was out of the norm for her.
Her mother got very nervous.
But Leonida feels a wave of relief wash over her when she sees Diana's car in the parking lot.
She goes to the parking lot and she spots her daughter.
She sees Diana hunched over and she thought, oh my God, look at this girl. I'm gonna kill her. I can't believe she fell asleep in the car.
Diana? What are you doing out here?
But Diana isn't sleeping.
She felt something wet, and when she looked at her hand, it was blood.
Oh my God! Oh.
She immediately calls 911.
Please, somebody help me!
Diana Casado had always been the heart of her family.
She was kind of like the glue, you know, the one that kept them all together.
Diana's father, her mother, her brother, they all said she brightened up a room. She was a lovely girl, very friendly, always would lend a helping hand, whether she knew you or didn't know you.
But Diana had an especially strong bond with her mother.
Her mother and her were very tight.
She did everything with her, went to the salon, got their nails done, went to eat.
Her mom had just always really been her best friend.
And Leonida couldn't have been more proud of her daughter.
Diana, along with her whole family, originally immigrated from the Dominican Republic.
She came when she was around 16, 17.
For a lot of kids, that would have thrown them for a loop at that age, but Diana adjusted really well, and her parents were so proud of her.
In her new home, Diana had no trouble fitting in.
Yonkers has a high immigrant population. A lot of the population are Latino.
Her friends loved her. They said she was outgoing, she was fun.
She also had the discipline to work hard.
Diana had gotten a job at a restaurant near where they were living.
In fact, her mother worked at the same restaurant that she did.
She had a small circle of friends who also worked at the same restaurant. And that was her little family.
But as a young woman, Diana had more on her mind than hard work.
Diana was like a free spirit. She wanted to have fun.
So it was no wonder when she caught the eye of a handsome older man named Luis Alteret Rivera.
She was his waitress, and the two quickly hit it off.
Hey, I'm Diana.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm doing better now. How are you?
He was a good-looking man.
He started talking to her.
He was being very nice, open and friendly.
He said, you know, would you like to get together?
I would love to take you out sometime.
How's Friday?
They exchanged numbers, and they ended up going on a date that same week.
Even though Luis was almost 15 years older than Diana, they had an immediate connection.
That age gap really was exciting for her.
He had a good career as a civilian working on a military base.
He has all of this extra life experience.
And he always made Diana feel special.
She thought he was the sweetest guy in the world.
He's taking her out to places she's never been to, for date nights.
He made her think he can give her the world.
And it wasn't long before the pair became an item.
He thought he loved her.
She was head over heels in love with him.
It seemed like this was the one.
But in the spring of 2016, after spending nearly a decade together, 27-year-old Diana was yearning for a change.
You have to remember, she was a kid when she met Luis. She didn't really know who she was.
She reached a point in her life where she thought, I don't know if this is really what I want forever because I really haven't experienced anything else.
So she decided to make a fresh start.
She wanted to start over, do something different. So she took a vacation with her sister down to Miami. She was able to mix and mingle and meet new people, and she experienced new things. She felt like, you know what? Miami might be the place for me.
Diana and Luis went their separate ways, and she was looking forward to this new life in Florida.
But after only 6 months of living it up in Florida, Diana realized just how homesick she'd become.
She missed her mom, she missed her dad, she missed her friends. So she came back to New York.
She went right back to work in the same place.
What are you doing out here?
But now, just a few months after returning to New York, tragedy has struck.
Diana Casado's mother discovered her in her car, bleeding.
She subsequently calls 911.
Over here!
When first responders arrive on the scene, it's clear what happened to her.
She had an apparent gunshot wound to the head.
But she is still alive.
She still had vital signs and was breathing.
27-year-old Diana Casado had left her life and her love in New York to find herself again.
She was down in Florida for several months in 2016.
She was feeling like she didn't really know who she was.
She couldn't commit to Luis feeling like this, so they split up and she went to stay with her sister in Miami.
But it didn't take long for her homesickness to bring her back to Yonkers.
She felt like the grass wasn't that much greener on the other side, so back to Yonkers it was.
And she quickly reconnected with Luis.
Her friends wondered if they would get back together.
But now, Diana's future hangs in the balance.
Let's get her out of here.
Patrol officers arrived and confirmed that we had a female who was shot at the location. She still had vital signs and was breathing, despite a gunshot wound to the head.
She was taken to the hospital down in New York City.
While officers transport Diana's mother to the station to get her statement, detectives take their first look at the crime scene.
Diana had been seated in the driver's seat of the vehicle.
There was blood all over inside the car.
We surmised that the suspect shot her as she was about to get out of the car, because she was shot close range, and the trajectory was downward.
While detectives don't locate any weapons at the scene, they do find evidence to point to the type of gun that was used.
There was a shell casing inside the vehicle.
It was a .40 caliber.
They also take note of what isn't in the vehicle.
There was no pocketbook in the car. They couldn't find her cell phone.
When you see that there's property missing, you start to lean towards it being a robbery.
Hopeful that someone may have seen the shooter, police start going door to door.
This was a highly populated area, and people were always coming and going.
And it doesn't take them long to find a witness.
One of the neighbors told us that they heard a gunshot.
I was in bed when I heard a loud bang.
Gunshots are not uncommon in that area of Yonkers.
People at that point kind of become rather numb to crime. Unfortunately, it was just another day in the hood.
But after the fact, she remembered that's when she thought she heard a gunshot.
She was absolutely sure it was 3:01 because when she heard the shot, she looked at the cable box and saw it was 3:01 a.m.
She ran to the window to look, but she didn't see anything out of the ordinary, so she didn't call the police.
Okay. If the shot the neighbor heard was the one to wound Diana, it would mean she was sitting in her car alive for more than 4 hours with a gunshot wound to the head before her mom found her.
The woman's statement doesn't help them identify a suspect, but it does give them a timeline. Now they can look to another kind of eyewitness.
There were several cameras in that area, and detectives hope they caught something, but it takes a long time to collect all that video, process it, and review it.
In the meantime, detectives head back to the station to talk to Diana's mom, Leonida.
She was extremely devastated.
Have you gotten any updates from the hospital?
She just went to surgery. They said it could be a couple of hours.
So before she goes to be by her side, Diana's mother has agreed to walk them through the events leading up to her 911 call.
She said she last saw Diana the night before.
In the early evening, she returned home and then later went out with some friends.
Do you know who? No. I think she was with her girlfriends.
Leonida says she got a phone call from Diana later that night.
She said, I'll be home maybe around 1 or so.
After that, Diana's mother says she went to bed, expecting to see her daughter in the morning.
But her mother wakes up and realizes she's not home.
That's when she went looking for Diana and found her clinging to life.
How will her mother ever get that memory out of her head?
Can I go to my baby now?
Before they let her go, detectives need a little more information on Diana's personal life.
Was she seeing anyone?
Nothing serious since she returned from Florida.
Diana's mom explained that she'd been back in New York for a couple of months and reconnected with her ex, Luis, but they weren't exclusive.
So she wasn't out with Luis last night?
She said, no, not that night.
We appreciate you coming in. I'll walk you out.
When Diana's father shows up at the station, he's just as shocked about what's happened.
Diana's father and mother were separated. Now,
so after Diana's mother found her, her brother showed up at the scene and then went back to her father's house and told her father.
There wasn't much anyone could do at the hospital, so he come to the station to help them find out who did this.
He was just trying to give us as much info as possible.
I can't believe it. I just saw her yesterday.
Could you tell us more about yesterday?
He said she went over probably about 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
He told them that her ex-boyfriend, Luis Altaret Rivera, was staying with him, so he was there too.
So you're close with this young man?
Of course, he's part of the family.
Luis did things for him. He'd take him to a doctor's appointment, he cooked for him, he cleaned the house.
And Diana didn't mind this friendship?
She and Luis are still close.
They kept the relationship very cordial.
A lot of people thought they were going to get back together.
But like Diana's mother, her father has no idea who would want to harm her.
The dad assumed it was a stranger, the robbery.
When detectives sit down with her ex, Luis, he agrees.
They'd gotten his number from Diana's dad, and he was more than happy to come in.
When she parked her car, it's very dangerous. I even gave her a maid, not to know go.
This was looking more and more like a random crime, but law enforcement always wants to start with the victim's inner circle and then move out from there.
Luis confirms to detectives that he and Diana were still on good terms.
And you and Diana never had any problems?
Never had a problem.
No? Nothing physical, anything like that?
Never.
He was very polite, very cooperative and cordial.
However, he does admit to being shocked by the way Diana ended their relationship.
He thought she was going to stay with her sister for a week vacation in Florida.
She told me she was going for 10 days, and she never came back. That was surprising too.
It also raises a red flag for the detectives.
Maybe he hadn't accepted their breakup.
Did you want to get back together with her?
I would have loved to.
Luis was still in love with Diana.
But he knew she felt differently.
She don't want to have a serious relationship. We will still have sex, but not like seriously, you know.
Luis tells detectives that he respected her decision and eventually realized it was time to move on.
He said he started dating and seeing other people as well.
I have a girl. Not like wife, but like girl, friend.
And so did Diana.
Did she have other friends or no?
No, she goes out with females.
Diana was exploring her sexuality.
Diana was dating, and she met a woman, and she was in love.
The first suspect that most police officers look at are an intimate partner.
If she'd found out Diana was seeing Luis again, that could be a motive.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
As Diana Casado undergoes emergency surgery for a gunshot wound to the head, her ex-boyfriend, Luis Altaret Rivera, has just told Yonkers detectives that he'd heard she'd been seeing someone new.
He said she met a woman and she was in love.
But that isn't the only rumor Luis shares with detectives.
They broke up, I don't know, something happened with her.
Could Diana's new love interest be responsible for her death?
You need to consider people's motives. Could be this overwhelming jealousy of, a fear of losing Diana.
Of course, the fact that Diana was seeing someone new could also give Luis a motive.
How'd that make you feel?
I didn't care because we didn't have a serious relationship.
To prove it, Luis tells them he was with his new girlfriend in the Bronx on the night of the shooting.
What time did you go down?
It was like 1.
They went in the car talking for a little bit, and then he told her, hey, let's go to Yonkers. Diana's father bought me a bottle of rum from DR.
He then drove to the father's house, and then he brings her back down to the Bronx.
They sat there, drank a little bit, and then she said she had to go, and he went home.
I got home around 5 something.
In the morning?
Yep.
Luis insists he has nothing to hide.
He gave us consent to search his vehicle to see his cell phone. We swabbed his person for gunshot residue.
And when the detectives follow up with his new girlfriend, she confirms everything he's told them.
His girlfriend in the Bronx was like, yeah, he was with me.
He had nothing to do with this.
It's a setback for the investigation. One that's made even worse when the detectives receive a call from the hospital.
Diana was taken off of life support, and she passed.
Anxious to find her killer, detectives waste no time tracking down their next suspect.
They were able to find the girlfriend's name through Diana's social media.
She was a young lady named Angelica.
But when Angelica shows up for her interview, she seems confused.
Can I ask what this is about?
I explained to her that Diana had been killed.
What?
She seemed really caught off guard.
Angelica tells them she'd had plans to see Diana the night before.
They were supposed to go out, but she ended up staying at work. They didn't meet up.
So wait, you two weren't broken up? No, definitely not.
When was the last time you two talked?
It was last night, a little after midnight.
Diana was out at a bar.
She was with her friend Ricardo.
Just a friend? For her, yeah.
Angelica thought Ricardo wanted more, but she didn't think Diana would ever go for it.
We had a good thing.
When detectives follow up with her supervisor, Angelica's alibi seems to check out.
She's working, and it was a distance away. We knew it wasn't her.
Ricardo White is now detectives' best lead.
He was the last person seen with her.
We were able to locate the gentleman to interview him.
Ricardo White?
Yeah. What's this about?
He was completely shocked to hear what had occurred.
Ricardo tells detectives that when he last saw Diana, she was very much alive.
I went to a bar, hung out for a little while.
She's having a good time, she's dancing, having a couple drinks.
At about 2:30, he walked her out of the bar. She got into her car, she drove off.
Ricardo claims he doesn't know where Diana went next. But is he telling the truth?
And how would you describe your relationship with Diana?
We're just friends.
Were you looking for more than that?
I mean, I want to say no, but she was with Angelica.
To the detectives, he seems genuine.
He was very helpful. He said, whatever you need from me, I will help. But I had nothing to do with this.
Requesting the surveillance footage from the bar confirms Ricardo's story.
It's Ricardo.
In the video, Diana is clearly seen leaving the bar at 2:30 a.m.
You see them on video walking to the car, then you see him coming back.
He's going to head to the club for approximately an hour thereafter. And that would put him in the club long after we believe she was shot.
Which means the investigation has now come to a standstill.
It's frustrating. You feel like you owe the family an explanation.
Take a seat, please.
But a meeting with Diana's brother is about to change the course of the investigation.
He wanted to talk to them about Diana's ex-boyfriend, Luis.
I know my dad loved the guy. He didn't know everything.
According to Junior, Diana's father thought Luis had always been a doting partner.
He's going to sit right next to her. He's going to get her drink. He's going to drive her to and from work.
But Junior saw Luis's behavior differently.
He said, you know, he was very controlling.
You wearing that?
Yeah.
Put this on.
He saw him as someone who wants to be able to monitor her every move.
She couldn't do anything on her own.
When Diana decided to end the relationship and move to Florida, Junior was optimistic. But as soon as she returned to New York, he says Luis started worming his way back into her life.
He attempts to resume the controlling behavior, following her at work, trying to be everywhere she is.
He wouldn't take no for an answer.
Junior made sure to let police know that if anyone was capable of doing this to his sister,
What's this?
it was Luis.
Less than 48 hours after Diana Casado was murdered, her brother Junior has just told Yonkers detectives that they should be looking at her ex-boyfriend, Luis Alterette Rivera.
He saw him as someone who wants to be able to monitor Diana's every move.
He said Luis controlled everything that Diana did. He controlled what she wore, what she could buy, where they would go.
You wearing that?
Yeah.
Put this on.
It's a classic sign of domestic violence.
Put it on.
He saw her as an object. She was property to him.
He's got to be looked at for this crime.
However, the facts suggest Luis couldn't have pulled the trigger.
The gunshot residue testing they conducted on Luis came back negative. And they confirmed his alibi for the night that Diana was killed.
I'll walk you out.
At Junior's insistence, detectives decide to take a closer look at Luis.
Junior didn't know all the ins and outs of the couple's relationship, but he said one of Diana's oldest friends, Camilla Rhodes, would know more.
Called down to the station, Camilla seems just as convinced of Luis's guilt.
What her brother told you, that isn't the half of it.
She admits that when Diana first met Luis, she was desperately in love.
The beginning of a relationship, everything's amazing.
But she says the couple's age gap soon created a dangerous dynamic.
Oftentimes what happens when you have an older partner in a relationship with someone significantly younger, there is grooming that happens with the younger individual.
In domestic relationships that turn bad, there's often a trend of a controlling nature by one party, where that party tries to be present to every moment of their partner's life. There's a pattern of overwhelming control.
It's a common thread in many abusive relationships, especially those involving young people.
Younger teens and adults have not developed at that point your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is your powerhouse for making decisions.
For someone to come in, especially someone to come in with toxic traits, at that point, you don't even have the critical thinking skills to discern what is toxic about them and what is you.
Luis molded her into the person that he wanted her to be, which was almost like his little puppet.
And by the time they moved in together, Luis had full control over Diana's life.
He didn't work. He made Diana cook, clean, everything.
She paid the rent. He just lived off her and sucked her dry.
And over the years, his controlling behavior became even more extreme.
He would drop her off at work and watch, make sure she didn't speak to anybody.
After her shift is over, 8 hours later, he would take her home.
He was trying to dominate her every minute.
She lived this life that no one would want. He would pick out what he wanted her to wear. When she took a shower or a bath, he had to watch because he wanted to see if there was any marks on her neck, like hickeys.
If Diana was gonna go visit Camila, then Luis was gonna go with her.
Sometimes they're in a restaurant or in a club. He'd be outside watching to see what she's doing.
I thought it was crazy, but I didn't want to step in the middle of their relationship until I saw the bruises.
That's ridiculous, man. Wait, Diana, what's this? It's not a big deal.
She told her, like, look, you know, you have this bruise. Did he do this?
She said, he hit me, he threw me up against the wall.
Camilla urged her friend to get help, but Diana was too afraid.
She said, I'm not going to get an order of protection because that's going to really set him off.
She did not want to get her family involved because she was afraid what he would do to them.
You need to tell someone. Don't do it. He'll hurt my family.
He had threatened to do harm to Diana's mom, Diana's brother.
Imagine the burden that she had to carry.
Diana was physically abused, but I want to say the mental abuse was worse. Fearing for her mother, her brother, her father.
However, Camilla says that after nearly a decade together, Diana began plotting her escape.
She told Luisa she was going to stay with her sister for a week vacation. She intends to set up permanent residence.
She was cleaning the slate and starting a new life down there.
Unfortunately, Diana's fresh start wasn't what she bargained for.
He soon follows her down there.
Did he find her?
No, but he was looking.
He didn't know where she lived.
He was trying to get the address, but she wouldn't give it to him. But he continued to call her.
This guy just would not leave her alone.
She would always have it in the back of her mind that at any given moment, Luis Rivera could pop out of the woodwork and terrorize her.
Convinced she'd never find peace in Florida, Diana eventually moved back home.
She went back to work at the same location.
In an abusive relationship, it's not really recommended for you to return back to the location in which you were abused.
But Diana felt there was no escape.
She was stuck. This guy wasn't going to let her go.
He found her, and the same cycle continued.
She was afraid to tell him no.
They started seeing each other once in a while.
It was to keep him happy, just so he didn't, react or harm her family.
But Diana had refused to stop living her own life.
She met a woman, and she was fond of her.
It was overwhelmingly happy for her, like just being with this new person who made her feel good and didn't tear her down. She was ready to just embrace whatever came forward.
But Camilla fears that Diana made a fatal mistake.
She had a conversation with Luis 2 days before she was killed. She basically told him, it's over. I'm not going to be with you. I'm never going to be with you.
I tried to stop her. I didn't think it was a good idea.
She told Diana, you might be signing your own death sentence.
It's over!
Yonkers police now know that nearly everything Diana Casado's ex-boyfriend, Luis Altoret Rivera, told them about their relationship was a lie.
There was a big disparity in the way Luis described the relationship and how other people described it.
It wasn't a good relationship.
This guy is abusive.
And when police check Luis's criminal record, it's clear that's not the only thing he lied about.
He had an extensive record. In 2007, he threw something at his wife at the time.
They had a really bad relationship. He would beat her in front of the kids.
In 2009, he had an assault, unlawful imprisonment. That was a domestic violence with his wife. Again,
he held her against her will for a period of time, and he assaulted her and poured floor cleaner down her throat.
There was also a domestic disturbance with his niece in the Bronx. He's always been very abusive.
Which makes detectives wonder, did Luis kill Diana?
Luis claimed to have been with another woman, and this other woman vouched for him.
However, his phone records tell a different story.
He told police he was with his new girlfriend from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. on the night of the murder, but his phone showed he was still texting her at 3 a.m.
If you've been sitting together in a car or anywhere else, why would you be texting?
His alibi's not adding up.
When detectives follow up with Luis's girlfriend a second time, she quickly cracks.
She soon realized that we knew more than she thought.
And at that point, she's like, no, he wasn't with me that early.
He had told her to tell the police that they were together from roughly midnight till 5 a.m. When in truth, he spent about an hour and a half with her, from about 3:30 to maybe 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Detectives aren't surprised when she explains why she lied.
She was afraid that she would end up like Diana Casado if she didn't say that he was with her.
Cell phone evidence also places Luis in the area of the crime scene that night.
His cell phone is pinging off cell towers in Yonkers beyond 3:30 in the morning.
He wasn't in the Bronx where he said he was.
The cell phone towers connected him to the homicide.
Even with Luis's alibi proven to be a lie, detectives have no hard evidence that he shot Diana.
We needed a physical evidence.
But they end up with something even better.
A few days after the shooting, police finally received the results from their video canvas.
I was in bed when I heard a loud bang.
Our ear witness told us she heard a gunshot right at 3 o'clock. 2 minutes after that, we have Luis walking on video about 100 yards from the location. Further, we have him carrying on his back a purse.
When he gets down the hill, there is a dumpster right around the corner.
He dumped her pocketbook and its contents into the dumpster.
He closes it and he walks down the block.
It's the smoking gun detectives have been looking for.
There was little doubt in anyone's mind that Luis was the suspect and the murderer.
There's just one problem.
He was no longer anywhere to be found.
Days go by without any sign of Luis.
His cell phone went completely dark.
They couldn't find him. He was basically on the run.
When police break the news to Diana's family, they're furious at Luis's betrayal. But no one is more shocked than her father.
The father didn't know any of the stuff that was going on with Luis and his daughter. He didn't know how he was mistreating his daughter.
But Dad's mind, he's like, when could he have possibly have left to actually commit a homicide?
He thought, he's laying on my couch. He was here when I woke up.
How can you commit something so grotesque and still be able to be sound asleep hours later? The thought of it for Dad, understandably, was just unfathomable.
It broke my heart because her father told me I only let him stay and I was nice to him because I thought if I was nice to him, he would be good to my daughter. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way.
Eventually, Yonkers police recruit the help of the FBI to track Luis down.
They helped us with tracking his cell phone. He was all over the place. Connecticut, Florida. But by the time you get to that location, he's no longer there.
He seemed to always be one step ahead.
More than a year goes by without an arrest in Diana's case.
Being patient is very difficult, especially when you know who your suspect is.
But the police refuse to give up.
When it comes to something so heinous as what happened to Diana Casado, we will find who did it, and we will eventually bring you to justice.
Then finally, in March of 2018, they received new information on Luis's whereabouts.
This is Benjamin.
We went to Puerto Rico to his father's house.
Once again, he's managed to slip away. But this time, he's left a sickening trail.
We found out that there was actually a girlfriend in Puerto Rico who was murdered 13 months after Diana was. And he's a person of interest in that case.
Her name was Ilia Milan Melendez.
He got a phone call one day from his uncle that she was at a bar and she's drunk. He comes over to the bar and forcibly drags her from the bar, puts her in his car, and that's the last she's seen.
She was found nearly decapitated in a shallow grave by a beach.
I mean, this guy he's a psychopath.
In the aftermath, Luis had disappeared again.
How long can this go on? It became that much more important to not leave him free for any longer.
Then, in February of 2019, investigators get the break they've been waiting for.
We were able to get a new cell phone number for him. He's in Vancouver, Washington.
We knew we had to move quickly.
We got on a plane and went out there.
It's time. Let's grab him.
2 years after the murder of Diana Casado, Yonkers homicide detectives have followed their suspect's trail across the country to Washington State.
We found out where he was living. We went over, knocked on the door. He opened the door.
Put your hands up!
We explained who we were, why we were there, and asked, would you come with us? He said, sure, no problem. He was very cooperative.
In an interrogation room, police present Luis with the evidence against him. He seems unfazed.
Look, Luis, we know you lied to us. Do you have anything you want to say?
Even after putting holes in his story, Luis didn't concede to being untruthful about his timeline.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
If you let your guard down, he can sweet talk anyone.
The detectives know someone like Luis will never confess.
At one point, Detective Guy says, look at me and tell me that you didn't kill Diana. And he just smirked. He always thought he was one step ahead. He was just smarter than everybody. He was gonna get away with it.
But in the end, his denials don't matter.
Let me see your hands.
We had enough to go and charge him with the murder.
Sit tight.
They had made arrangements to have him extradited back to New York.
For Diana's family, news of the arrest lifts a weight from their shoulders.
It was very emotional for Detective Geis and I to be able to tell the family, hey, we got him.
The family, I have to say, God bless them, because I don't believe I would be that patient. They're a beautiful family, truly.
And on May 23, 2022, when Luis stands trial, the prosecution doesn't hold back.
They said this crime was cold, calculated, and fueled by Luis's jealousy and his need to control Diana.
She told Luis that she was in love with a woman and that was it. Like, she was done with him and she was gonna move on.
That was the tipping point.
He took that as a sign of disrespect, like, who do you think you are?
So in the early morning hours of January 22, 2017, police believe Luis contacted Diana and asked her to meet him.
She did agree to meet him.
We have very good evidence that Diana picked up Luis around 2:45 in the morning.
We have video of her car actually going towards the direction where he was living. And then it comes back. And it looks like there's two people in the car.
And then we were able to follow her car on camera, and she parks it out in the parking lot shortly thereafter.
All right, Luis, what is this about?
Her guard was down. She was expecting a conversation, one of the many conversations that they had had before.
But Luis was planning something else.
They started arguing about their relationship.
Diana, I love you.
No, this isn't love. I can't keep doing this with you.
When Luis realized it was finally over, he pulled out a gun.
To show that he is still in control, he did something that ended it all.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Prosecutors argued that the surveillance footage proves Luis's guilt.
The gunshot was at 3 o'clock.
At the time, the cameras in the area caught him walking from the scene all the way down to where he finally threw out Diana's purse.
The video evidence was just so overwhelming.
But the defense disputes the details.
The defense in the case was, yeah, that's Luis on video, but you haven't proven that he was the one who killed her.
For the jury, there's no question who ended Diana Casado's life that night.
The jury came back less than 2 hours and convicted him of the second-degree murder.
When they said guilty, it was such a great feeling.
You never know with a jury. And when they said guilty, man, I was like, wow, this is great. This is great.
1 month later, Luis returns to the courtroom for sentencing.
Diana's mother was able to make a victim impact statement.
She spoke from her heart, and she broke down. Her family broke down in the audience.
She just said, you know, you took everything. You took my life away. I'm dead. Diana was everything to her. They were not only mom and daughter, but they were best friends. She said, you didn't have to do this. You destroyed my life. I have nothing now.
She begged over and over, why? Why did you take my beautiful daughter? And there was no answer. The judge rendered his sentencing, which was 25 years to life.
Diana's family was so grateful that finally he was gonna pay for what he had done. Now he's away, he can't hurt anybody else.
We were able to do it. We were able to give him justice.
But for Luis's other alleged victim, justice remains out of reach.
There's another woman in Puerto Rico who also was killed.
My understanding is that they still are actively working the case.
I hope for the victim's family in Puerto Rico, the same thing happens.
Either way, Luis will spend his life behind bars, while his victims' memories will live on.
I remember her mother telling us, I just thought she would be forgotten. And we were like, no, we're not gonna forget.
It's a story that needs to be told.
If you find yourself in a relationship that is unhealthy, then it's important to share, to not keep this just to yourself.
Domestic violence happens way too often. Don't wait till it ends up this way. Don't be afraid to speak up.